Good morning. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Live at the Waterhole, where I will be entertaining you while trying my best for the next 3 hours. And my name is Taylor McCurdy, in case you've never heard my voice before. It doesn't normally sound like this. However, we are in spring at the moment, and there are a lot of flowers. There's so much dust, which I am not quite allergic to, but quite sensitive to. And I think lack of sleep also has made my voice disappear. So please bear with me. I'll try and mute all of my sneezes as often as I can, because that's not particularly pleasant unless you want to play a game of how many times I can sneeze in 3 hours. But we are at Oldonyo, which is one of the live cameras in Kenya, where there is an abundance of wildlife that we get to see every single day. And if this is your first time joining us, just to let you know, because this is live and happening right now, you can interact with me and a bunch of other people that are watching. You can either comment away or send questions on the YouTube chat, or you can head over to the WildEarth website and you can find the question box there, I suppose, and send some questions through as well. We'll just give it a moment or two just to let everybody join in. Tell me where you're from. Maybe you've got a joke to share with me. That'd be awesome. And maybe what you're drinking. I've got some Kericho Gold tea from Kenya, which is amazing. And I'll probably go hunting for a rusk at some point. Alice, you said good morning and you're excited for the show today. Me too. You can see how from yesterday, if you were watching, the last couple of days, we've had such a big cloud buildup in Aldonyo, and now the clouds seem to be burning away. They're just sort of lingering at the back, covering Mount Kilimanjaro, but perhaps they will burn away a little bit later. It looks like a lot of you are chatting on the YouTube stream, so I'm just going to run through a few of them. We've got Billy, who said morning from Texas. Jack Sultan, what an incredible scene to be a part of every single day. You're spot on there. Stephen, you've also said good morning from Michigan. Hello, Kathy Lee. Happy Sunday Fun Day, Taylor. That's a mouthful of words. I reckon I couldn't say that more than twice. And yeah, that's it for now. But we'll get some more people who will be joining shortly, I'm sure. I mean, what could be better than just lounging around on a Sunday? Maybe you're cooking breakfast. If you live in Hoedspruit, you might be ready to get into the pool. It's such a beautiful day, except it's a little bit on the windy side. But that's pretty much what these animals are going to do. Yo, look at the water. Look at how much the water level has dropped since yesterday. Is it just me? Or do you guys also think so? So if you aren't familiar, this is actually a pumped pan. So they'll be filling it up with water. I just can't remember seeing. I mean, I see this thing every single day. It's so funny that I have to ask everyone's opinions, but I prefer to do that. It does look like the water has gone down a fair amount. But we had so many different animals. I think we're going to see that at all the cameras, unless they have been pumping water overnight. Probably the best time to do it. Anna Marie, thank you. You said that you won't mind my sneezes. They're so annoying. They are. It just drives me insane. And then and no one really wants to know about this. I either have to do like 5 small sneezes or one big dad sneeze. And I know you all know exactly what I'm talking about, like with a neighbor's phone to find out if everything's okay. We've got to either do one of those. So I'll definitely mute it. Justin, you said, hey, Taylor, hello. Alara Moore also joined, which was awesome. Yeah, so I see a couple of you are saying maybe from evaporation, and that's why the water is dropping. Absolutely, in these hot conditions, we're experiencing pretty much at all the locations now, and that's going to play a huge factor. But when you continuously have a stream of wildlife coming in to drink, and then you throw in the mega herbivores like elephants, for an example, and I mean, is obviously depending on the size of an elephant, but its trunk can roughly hold about 10 liters of water. They also mess a lot while they're trying to drink, but an adult elephant can drink anywhere between 100 to 120 liters of water, and maybe in these more arid areas, possibly more. So when you've got like 8 or 9 big elephant bulls standing here, that's a lot of water that's being consumed. And I don't know the strength of the pump that is pushing out all the water. I think it's quite difficult to kind of keep up. That's why it might be best to do it at nighttime, where there isn't as many animals coming around to drink. A lot of the herbivores, they can drink at any time of the day, but we do see more aggregations of animals around waterholes during the day. But speaking of temperatures, evaporation, and all those types of things, let's go and check out what the weather is going to be through the rest of South Africa and Kenya and Namibia. Well, as you can see, Oldonyo seems to be the coolest of the places today, with only a high of 26 degrees Celsius. But everywhere else, including Namibia and the rest of South Africa, of course, the temperatures are going to be high 30s. So we should get quite a bit of animal action. Not that we've had a shortage of it. Also an interesting view with the earlight. Let's look at this. I can't get over it when you see the eland at this angle, because I can't say that I've ever really viewed them like this. Look at the male on the right. Look how big he is. He's built like a tank. When you're just riding your bike one day and the next minute you get knocked off it by an eland. You're like a train hitting you. Ooh, little butterflies. We've been talking about the butterflies around here. That one looks like it's got black and yellow on. Automatically when I see it, I think it's one of the pansies, but I don't think so. I don't think it is. But a little bit tricky and not too much detail that we are able to identify it. And all the giraffe trying to squeeze in. Yesterday we barely had any giraffe to come and drink, and now we've got them all again.
Are you WildEarth's biggest fan? Well, we have a brand new competition for you. Join our naturalists on Safari Live and listen out for weekly questions. To enter the competition, head over to our Instagram, search #WildEarthFanOfTheMonth and comment your answer under the post. The monthly winner will be determined by the total quickest and most correct answers. We announce our winner at the end of every month. Tune in to Safari Live daily.
I don't know how more giraffe don't knock each other out when they do that. Such a small waterhole to all be gathered around. And then when they fling their heads up like that. I mean, I've broken my nose before trying to flick my hair forward so that I could blow dry it. I wouldn't be able to be a giraffe. Very injured all the time. Come say fringe-eared oryx also squeezing in to have a drink. A couple of them in between all the giraffe. The zebras are still waiting their turn. I hope you're all taking screenshots of this. This is so beautiful. Make a nice desktop background. And also, the more and more you stare at the giraffes, you can just sort of see how each of them have their own unique patterns. Some lighter, some darker than others. Oh, wouldn't this be great if they all put their heads down at the same time? Jackie, you just asked a question, and thank you for your question. If animals are able to sense water, or and pans, or is it a learned behavior? Excuse me. No, a lot of animals can actually sense it. We as humans, I'm sure a very, very long time ago, we would have had some kind of understanding too. But then animals are creatures of habit, so I suppose it's a yes to both of those. A lot of information is passed down to other individuals, and with new studies that are being done on giraffe, they're basically disproving everything that we once used to believe of giraffe, and you'll understand why I said this. So, like, maybe normally I'd say no, giraffe just kind of sense it. They don't necessarily pass on information to one another, like, for example, like elephants, right, or some other animals that have got much closer social structures. But with the social structures, we always believe that they had something called temporary association. So there's no permanent bonding between individuals of a herd. But the latest research, and they're still carrying on with it, is that they have said that actually females are very closely related to one another, very similar to the social structure that elephants have, and that adult females and the older females, so should I call them the grandmothers, play a vital role in sharing information and amongst the other females within the herd. So I'm sure that information is being passed down, saying, okay, well, here's water here, and in, I don't know, 15 years ago when there was a drought, we managed to find water in this side, or there was better grazing, giraffe don't graze, browsing available, that type of thing. So a little bit of both. I also think if your sense of smell is quite keen, then you're going to be able to pick up where more water sources are. Elephants are a great example for this, and how they'll, move across areas of dry riverbeds and find the best place where the water table is the highest so that they can dig for it. The giraffe are literally going to have to go basically inside this little pan to be able to drink. It doesn't look too slippery around the edge. It looks quite rocky. Otherwise, as the giraffe do that, you just see them completely sink into the mud. The one on the right's a little bit on the hesitant side, saying, absolutely, I'm not getting my toes wet. Just had my hooves done. Oh, okay. This is something, just kind of touching what we were speaking about from Sanjeev. You've said, is there a hierarchy in giraffe like elephants, and then who should drink first? So I might have just answered that question before, even before seeing yours. So yeah, I'm sure. I think with a lot of different animals, there is a sense of hierarchy. Some might be more obvious than with others. Um, I don't think there's necessarily one giraffe that's going to drink first. They all sort of come around. They're quite cautious. I think they know the dangers of what's around a waterhole, and it's quite difficult for them to drink. So they all sort of just come together. But I can't say, and it's because I can't say this, I haven't sat with one particular group of giraffe consistently and then watched specific individuals' behaviors. That's the only real way that you're going to be able to tell that. And because giraffe are such understudied animals for being such an iconic animal in Africa, we've still got a lot to learn about giraffe, especially with this new research coming out now. But if you open any book, it will still tell you that they have temporary associations as their social structure, but that's also just because books are outdated. And because you can't just keep printing new editions every single year, no one would buy them. There's my morning meeting alert. I need to turn that off. I'm going to figure it out just now. Because you're wondering if they fill this little pan daily, I think they're going to have to. It's not very deep. We've watched warthogs go in there. We've seen zebra walk in. It's not really deep enough. Nothing can really have a proper swim. It's going to dry up very quickly. So I don't know how often they run the pump. I don't know if it's on permanently, if there's like a windmill or something that helps keep it going. Unfortunately, I haven't been here, so I haven't really been able to see the setup very well. Or if so it might just be windmill, like I said, or maybe there's like a solar panel that runs a pump and it's set on a timer, but not 100% sure. It's gone down a crazy amount since yesterday. It definitely wasn't this low. No, off they go, just like that. That's amazing. Animals just come and go and disappear. Now it's just the oryx to the left. Big safari lover, yes. The oryx is native to Kenya. They call it the East African oryx, right? But the East African oryx is broken into two animals. The one we're looking at is the fringe-eared oryx, and then further north, you also get the baser oryx, but that's not what we're seeing here. So oryx actually have had quite a wide distribution. Oh, hello. That's something we haven't seen at the Waterhole. So I'll get back to that now. Clearly, that's a bull on the left, and the female's just desperately trying to have a drink.
Those sounds just go straight through you.
This is airline has come carrying with a couple of ox pickers. I think we'll have a bit of a break from Old Donyo. Let's go check out Camphus Dam in Kimberley and see what our pink feathered birds are up to. We've got the usual suspects. We've got the red-knobbed coots with the blackbirds with a white face, and then of course lesser and greater flamingos. And they're actually doing something for a change. Every other morning we've popped on through here, they're all just preening their feathers in the sun. And we never actually get to see them, moving around so much. But this is quite nice. The water's quite deep, where the flamingos are on the right-hand side. That's awesome. And you can tell it's obviously deep because they're doing what the ducks do, putting their heads right under and tail feathers and feet sticking out. Flamingos have one of the most unusual beak bill structures of any of the bird species. I'm sure most of you will agree. Firstly, it's unusual looking, but the lower mandible is much larger than the top. And then something that we don't get to see, but again, a really cool thing to Google, is to have a very powerful fleshy tongue. And that's what's actually pumping water. Hey, sorry, I have a cocktail ant on me. Nope, get off. I have actually got a few of them. Um, so that's what's pumping water in and out of the bill. And obviously they do this upside down, as you can clearly see. Isn't this great? It doesn't look like it's too windy either. Sometimes this camera shakes quite a bit. There we go. That's a much better view. For so many birds, they aren't that vocal. I suppose during breeding season, it'll be a completely different story. So that's something forward. We are back. Sorry, everybody, about that. I didn't think that the Gremlins worked on a Sunday, but here we are. We'll hopefully pop back at another time and revisit the flamingos and have some more chats about them. But we're now at Jamala Waterhole, which is in the sort of western sector of Madikwe. And once again, all the usual suspects. This is also a great waterhole for species diversity. You can see that warthog that's just in the background. We always have elephants here. There's kudu, impala, wildebeest, and the zebra. It's a very excited male elephant. Oh boy, calm down. Considering these wildebeest don't have much to eat at the moment, they all look in lovely condition. The females are going to look a bit plump because there are wildebeest calves developing, but then there's a slightly younger individual off to the left. And it's not easy growing up during dry season where, you know, when you're born, you have everything, all lovely lush grass, mom's milk. And then a couple of months down the line, you have absolutely nothing. Mom doesn't want to let you suckle anymore. No, you just got to eat all the little bits of grass that are around. Once again, you'll probably hear some hammering, the odd drill going every now and then. That's just because of the construction that's being done here. I wonder how long it's going to take them. I hope we get to see the finished product. We've all been invested in the sounds. Perhaps we can pan off to the right and just see what the zebra up to. I did see some dust, so maybe they're rolling around. Apologies if every now and then it does freeze. That's a lovely group of zebra, doing exactly what the wildebeest are doing. Some of them look like they're swatting their tails simultaneously. No one's drinking just yet. Perhaps it's going to happen as it warms up. But it's going to be, I don't know, is it going to be like 35 degrees Celsius in Madikwe today? That's surprising. Or maybe the zebra have already had a drink of water. But there really isn't much for them to eat. But at least zebra have the upper hand. If you've ever had horses, or you've ever pet a horse or a pony, or even a donkey, you would have maybe put your hand out and let them put their muzzle in your hand. and essentially their lips are they're able to move around quite a bit. So unlike the wildebeest, they're much more adapted at picking up shorter bits of grass, any length of grass. But I think the ones that are going to be really winning with feeding on whatever is left here is the warthogs, using that hard snout and going down on their knees and literally using that snout like a shovel and pulling up whatever grasses are there, and probably more the roots than anything. But it's tricky. Sanji, you said it is very difficult to guess the age of adult zebras. They all look the same, barring the young ones. I agree with you. I think just aging animals in general is not an easy thing to do. But with zebras in particular, when those foals are born, they've got such long legs, almost the same length legs as the adults. But then they're also are fluffy, and their black stripes are not quite completely black as yet because of the fuzziness. They seem to be like a little bit lighter, almost a bit more orange. And then once that extra fluff falls off, not falls off, but wears away, then they start to get that more sleek, smooth sort of coat. They do grow up really quickly, though. You can't stay small for too long. It's obviously just the predators for the most part. That youngsters stay little for a long time. Elephants streaming in at the back now. Lots of dust being kicked up by the zebras. A couple of individuals not very happy with one another. Also, the politics amongst breeding herds of zebra can get quite scary sometimes. If you've ever seen two zebras, two stallions fighting, and I haven't seen it very often, but one sighting I'll never forget. It was down in the southern Sabi Sand, and there was this younger stallion that was trying to come in and steal mares uh, from another stallion. And the thing with the zebras, there's not a quick turnover where a stallion will only be with his mares for a couple of months or a year. Their harems are formed for years and years and years. So to have a younger male come in and try and steal one or two mares is like obviously like taboo. You don't do that, but obviously they do. And that was one of the most aggressive fights I've ever seen. It's also behavior that you typically just read about. You don't get to see very often. But it was this big open plain. It was just one breeding herd, and this young stallion just came bursting out the bushes and ran straight towards him. And the stallion with his harem didn't even hesitate. He charged out, and they kicked and bit one another. Unfortunately for the intruder, he was booted out, and he was left with some nasty wounds. Right, everybody, we're just going to do some switcherooskies and try get everything all sorted. But what we're going to do is we're just going to head over to Juma and see maybe if there's an elephant pool party or perhaps something else. We are back. We are back. Apologies, everybody. We just had some glitches telling us we're not allowed to work on a Sunday. How ridiculous, but it's fun. This doesn't count as work. But we're here at Juma now, where it all started. And it's windy. Windy in the low felt. You can see how the wind is actually pushing the water towards the, what direction is that? East. There's one hippo in the water. And that's it, really. Very quiet. Wonder if the spotted bush snake has been seen. A little while ago, a few weeks ago, in fact, I had a great sighting of a spotted bush snake that was, and I think it does utilize a little hole that's in the tree with where this camera is actually mounted to, and provided a lot of entertainment. But it might be heading out and moving around a bit earlier as we progress more into summer. It's probably something that we'll see in winter. We'll keep an eye out to see if any wonderful animals come down to Juma, or perhaps maybe there's a leopard hiding in a tree somewhere. But let's go back to Aldonio and continue the conversation of zebra. Now you might be able to hear the leaves blowing around. I'm just sitting outside. It's too hot inside. And we've got earland. Look how small the oryx is in comparison to the earland. I feel like oryx are built like polo ponies. Short and stocky. There's a really great comment from Joanne saying all wildlife should be protected and respected and helped when necessary. Always. I think everyone agrees with you. I doubt that there's one person who doesn't think that. And yesterday we touched on this topic quite a bit. It's something that I feel really passionate about. Again, I'm not quoting from any books. These are just my own opinions, which we, of course, are all entitled to. I know not everybody will agree, but that's also fine. Can you imagine if we all agreed these things, how boring this world would be? But with wildlife habitats just being encroached on by people consistently, it's just going to get tougher and tougher for wildlife. And these are all big open ecosystems, so they can free roam. And it is incredibly difficult for places, for example, like Madikwe, that are fenced, but they're trying to protect and preserve a wilderness area that was maybe once used for something else, probably farming, and that it's such a difficult thing to do, to make sure that all the components within the ecosystem are interacting, to the best of their ability. But it's so difficult to do that unless you let it happen natural. But to some degree, when you have fences, like population control of animals, especially the big herbivores and predators, it's quite a difficult thing to do. And you can very easily upset the apple cart. And I don't think that anyone gets it right, but at least people are trying to do their absolute best. Anyways, here's a giraffe, as you can see, feeding on a very thorny tree. I'm not sure. It looks like it's one of the acacia species. If you're going to talk about a common name, one of the Vicelia species. I don't know if it's either a tortillus or Girardi, one of the two. Again, I haven't been here, so it's hard to tell. And because I can't see the thorns very well, if it's just straight thorns or if it has a combination of straight and hooked thorns, that can be a bit sort of tricky to tell. But anyways, one of the most important tree species in the world, especially here in Africa. And vital. Obviously, animals love to eat the leaves. And these are really sweet. I mean, like not like you're going to pick up a candy or something like that, put in your mouth. Not that kind of sweet, but in comparison to the other leaves I've tasted, they're pretty sweet. But they're obviously also, I know you've all heard this before, and for those of you that do biology, we probably learned about the nitrogen cycle. And these trees have got little nitrogen fixing nodes on the roots, so that helps restabilize the soil again. I used to be bored to death by something like the nitrogen cycle or the carbon cycle in school. And then now I find it fascinating. Funny how our perspective changes. I suppose it's a lot more relevant to me now than when I was trying to focus in class. Oh, that was a great walk by of the eland with the oxpeckers also just sitting there. There we go. That's so great. Isn't that cool? It's that moment when you're at a popular tourist destination. Everyone's trying to get their photo with whatever it is in the background, and then the crowds of people just walk through consistently. And I have to admit, my younger brother and I, we were terrible. So naughty. Obviously, we were doing this out of sight of our parents. We weren't very young, teenagers. We'd totally photobomb lots of people, trying to do that just in the background. And hopefully they'd only notice when they got home. We let them get 1 or 2 pictures, but we definitely hopped in there. I think everybody does that, though, at some point in their life. And then, Alara, earlier you mentioned, you said, look at the color difference between the earlines. You're quite right. So the females are going to be a lot more tan in coloration. And then a mature earline bull are lighter in color. But I say lighter in color, they're just not this brown. They almost go like a dark gray, if you will. But we see that... I suppose there's different types of sexual dimorphism, and with the earlines, it's size. For males, their horns are much thicker. They're not necessarily as long and slender as the females, and then you can see the color difference too. My oryx are really small. You don't realize how tiny they are. Maybe that's why they have to be so feisty all the time. They have a complex. If you watched a couple of days ago, we had this interesting interaction between an oryx and a giraffe, where an oryx actually should have shoved its head in the direction of the giraffe and ushered it away, which I hadn't seen before. You see that with a lot of small animal species, how aggressively they tend to be right from the beginning. Bro, here the fork-tailed drongos chatting away. That's not on the camera. That's actually just from the garden. Sounds like something is alarming. They're all nervous. Everyone's become just sort of looking around. I don't know who it was. Which animal was alarming there? It almost sounded like a Thompson's gazelle, but we've been seeing one coming through every day. I'm not entirely sure. No, they're not happy. It could be just people moving around in the hide. Look at that giraffe's ear. Eyes, sense of smell, one ear very focused in our direction, and the other one just making sure it doesn't miss anything behind. Hello, oxpeckers. No, yellow-billed oxpeckers, stay here. Oh, there's still one. Bounding around. It'll be a great opportunity to see how animals feed. So not all animals feed the same way, especially if you're talking about herbivores. Like we can clearly see that the giraffe actually uses two different methods. It uses its tongue. It sticks its tongue out and grabs some leaves. And then I've also seen them just using their lips and picking smaller, smaller sections of leaves off too. And something like a buffalo, for an example, you watch, they've also got quite a long tongue. Maybe if you've never encountered a buffalo close by or used a pair of binoculars, just think of a cow. You see like cows stick their tongues out, wrap it around the grass and pull it back in. So it's all, interesting. It all plays a really important part in how grasses and trees are cropped. And I mean, one of the most amazing and famous symbiotic relationships is that between zebra and wildebeest, where the zebra and also the buffalo to a degree play a huge role in this. I don't mind which length of grass they feed on, but some animals prefer the shorter crop grasses like the wildebeest. So we call that grazing facilitation. So they're working together by doing this. Whether they consciously know that that's what's happening, I have no idea. I like to think that animals are a bit more intelligent than we make them out to be. But it's difficult to obviously get inside their head. And this giraffe has got no problem munching around the thorns. The comparison that I like to use is anybody that works in landscaping, or I don't know, I suppose any farming, I don't know, whatever, aquaponics, whatever you want to call it, lots of different things. Your hands get so much more tough, especially if you're not using gloves, and eventually the prickles don't hurt anymore. I've definitely become accustomed to being scratched and pricked by trees. I don't react the same way that I used to. I used to, and now it just kind of happens, and I'm like, oh, when did I get that big scratch?
Do you love relaxing at a waterhole with the sights and sounds of Africa all around you? Well, we have some really exciting news for you. From August 1st, Africam is joining forces with WildEarth to bring the majesty of Africa right into your living room with 9 incredible new waterhole cameras from across South Africa and Kenya. Get ready to embark on a new journey. This is Live at the Waterhole.
We'll definitely come back to Old Donyo, but there is a strange bird in Tal that we don't very often get to see. Let's go check it out. It's an ostrich. It's a male ostrich too. Look at his dark black feathers. Doesn't have his breeding plumage on and doing what ostriches just do best, pecking. Pecking for anything on the ground. Has anyone not seen an ostrich before? Is this the first time you're seeing one? Obviously, this show is shown all over the world. I do wish, though, that ostriches could fly. It's one thing seeing things like Cory bustards, which are really large birds, heavy, very heavy flying birds. Watching them take off and land, imagine an ostrich. They'd have to have their own private airstrips, or maybe they would use the airstrips that are in place in a lot of game reserves. Aeroplanes would have to coordinate with the birds. Just a funny thought. No, don't disappear. Come back. And there's quite a few reasons why ostriches can't fly. Not just because of their sheer size, which definitely plays a role, but they don't have very big wings for the size of their bodies, and then they also have a flattened sternum, or your breastbone, and birds that can fly have got a keel-shaped sternum. So for those, if you don't know what that term means, think of boats. So the hull of a ship, that's what the shape of it should look like. And then they've also got very powerful wing muscles that are attached to it. So the ostriches kind of lack that. And then you look at their feathers, and their feathers aren't really adapted for flying either. They're quite sort of loosely structured. The little filaments and the barbules don't connect as well as other bird species. To sort of make a downward stroke, the air would just go straight through the feathers and then not create any uplift either. So those are some serious problems that the giraffe had. Oh, now that it's turned a different direction, you can sort of see slight pinkish coloration on the legs and its head. Around its beak. Gosh, the other day we did a whole thing on bird anatomy, and here I go not being able to find my words. I'm going to blame it on the antihistamines. Oh, hello, zebra. Ostriches are such tall birds too. You don't really realize how big they are until you come face to face with one. Also, very dangerous. Many people get killed by ostriches every single year with their velociraptor-like toes. I just read a very funny comment. Jive Bunny, you said that you've been chased by one near Cape Town. It is terrifying. I don't blame you. I've not been chased by an ostrich, but as safari guides, there's very qualifications as you can do, but most of us become trails guides, walking guides, and one thing that you have to do is carry a rifle when you're walking in dangerous game areas. We are taught to never have to shoot, but we're also taught how to shoot very well. But thankfully, having to utilize the firearm, the rifles that we're carrying, doesn't happen very often. Because we don't need to get super close to wildlife. We start to understand different elements in the bush that can help us sort of avoid them. But when you learn to walk, especially in an area with ostrich, you have obviously the big five: leopard, lion, buffalo, rhino, and lion. Did I say lion already? I think I said them all. And you also get taught about ostrich. And we could definitely not outrun an ostrich. What would you do in a situation if you got caught with an ostrich? I think I'd just try and climb a tree. I doubt shouting at an ostrich would really do anything. And then Billy Keating, you've asked, do ostriches really bury their heads in the sand? So that's like one of the oldest wives' tales. We all hear it. And the answer to that is no. I think someone must have just saw it once. Maybe the ostrich was standing quietly and just had its sort of head down, didn't notice that it was pecking, something along those lines. But also when they feel threatened, or that, just when they're sitting down, sometimes they'll put their heads down. I don't know if that's what makes it look like that. I don't know. I don't understand where that came from. But an ostrich head is pretty much down on the ground all the time because that's where they're feeding. No, they're not necessarily feeding up on the tops of their trees. So barely like what you've seen now. It's just this big ball of feathers moving around. And you can't tell front from back when the head is all the way down to the ground. And he's just disappearing. Come back. We never get to see you. It's also tough for the ostriches at the moment, just like it is for all the other animals in terms of finding food. If they can eat nice, leafy green things, they absolutely will. But now I'll be pecking away. If they can find any insects, that'll be good to help increase protein in their diet, because they're definitely not getting it from much of the vegetation at the moment. They'll eat flowers. I've never seen an ostrich eating fruit, but I wouldn't put it past them. Maybe it's not high up on their list of things to eat, but most animals are opportunistic. Okay, bye ostrich, but I think we're going to go check out another bird in the Pilansberg Game Reserve. Uh-huh. This is without the ibis. You can easily identify that by that extremely long beak, very sort of slender head, and with its white plumage, it's an African sacred ibis. So that's the black and white one. We of course see the hardy-dar ibis. We can also get the glossy ibis, and then if you're really lucky, the southern bald ibis. That's a difficult one to find. I don't think that this ibis is an adult though. The reason why I say that is that their head is normally quite dark black and all the way down onto the neck just before where the breast is. And I can think you can all see that it's quite mottled. It's almost dirty. I mean, they do have this sort of dirty tinge to it. But there we go, as it turns its head. You see, the neck is not black yet. So this will be an immature ibis, African sacred ibis. Oh, and you can hear and see the arrow mark babblers behind it. No, come back. Why does this always happen? Just as I want to start telling you cool stories, it just moves away. There's some blacksmith lapwings, of course. And we've had the they're watching the cameras. Oh, look, there they are. Yay! The ibises again. We've also been watching different birds feeding in the water, and ibises have got quite a varied diet, but they can also feed in many different habitats. So you see them out in grassy plains, you see them along the water's edge like this, whether it's a waterhole covered with vegetation. Also see them wading in the water, on sandbanks, pretty much anywhere and everywhere. And they're quite big birds. You can see them now in the size difference between the blacksmith lapwing. It's just creeping in between them. And that long, powerful bill is not used to spear fish like we've been seeing with the grey heron at Tau. But within this beak, and a lot of birds also have this, have got a sensory nerve that runs through there. So they are probers. They're not really just plucking insects off or whatever they might be feeding on the surface of the water. They're actually piercing the ground, the mud, so kind of going below the surface to find insects. And it's so interesting to actually see an area where they've been feeding, especially like on a nice sandy bank where it's wet, and you'll see lots of little holes in the ground, obviously with a combination of footprints too. So once they probe that beak into the ground the first time, they're unlikely to pull something up. But if there is any movement below the surface, it's going to point them in the direction as to where they need to probe next. And then they'll push their beaks down into the soil again and hopefully get closer and closer. After the rains, actually in the Eastern Cape, it wasn't the African sacred ibis, which is what we're looking at. It was the hardy ibis. I watched a group of them catch so many earthworms out of the ground. It was insane. They were very happy birds. And growing up, where I'm from, I lived on a small holding, quite a big, like a plot, quite a big piece of land, and we had 2 Anatolian shepherds. Those are the dogs that they introduced with livestock. This was such a long time ago, to protect them from like cheetahs and leopards and lions. We didn't obviously need them for that, but because they're natural herders and guardian dogs, they didn't really have anything to herd. So we had chickens, so they looked after the chickens and ushered them into their little like pen at night, and then they also had a herd of hardy-dars, so they'd walk around with this, like, I don't know, there must have been like 5 or 6 hardy-dars the whole day, and then in the evenings they would chase them away, like as if to say, right, off you go, it's time for us to rest or do our night patrol. And hardy-dars, of course, roost up in trees and don't spend their time on the ground. And we didn't teach them to do it, but those dogs just had natural instinct. So it was, I'm sad, I wish this happened at this time of my life. It would have been so fascinating to watch the interactions between the hardy-dars, the ibises, and the dogs. I don't know if that's a weed eater that you can hear in the background, or someone's making a smoothie. One of the two. Oh my goodness. Let's very quickly go to Aldonia. It seems like there's some more interesting birds. Oh, wow. This is quite the standoff. That is a secretary bird on the left. Look, even the oryx are quite curious about it. This is awesome. This is a nice one to add to the list. It's the first secretary bird I've seen since hosting live at the Waterhole. They used to be my favorite bird species for a very, very long time, but then I just didn't see them every now and then, and I fell in love with white-crested helmet shrikes. I've also never seen a secretary bird come down to have a drink of water before, which I suspect is what's going to happen. Look how tall they are. They're very intimidating birds. I mean, beautiful, graceful. I would not want to mess with one, though. There's really nothing else you can get this bird confused with. So quite an iconic bird species in Africa. Let's see what this oryx is going to do. He's keeping his eye out on it. There we go. Oh, awesome. Oh, look at all the big butterflies. Looked like there was a big swallowtail flying around too. There are so many birds that don't ever need to drink water. Just because of, again, it's a constant conversation on topic we're talking about. Just because of the insects and prey that they're feeding on. So their diet is also quite varied. But they eat. Oh, there's a second one. That's cool. They are typically in pairs. Oh wow, no, come back and drink. They eat so many different things. So insects, they're masters at killing snakes. I've seen one in the Eastern Cape of South Africa killing a cobra, which was really cool. Cape cobra. And then what else have I? And then they eat like hares. They'll eat anything, literally. But I'm sure if they could catch a bird species like a ground dwelling bird on the ground, they'd probably do that. And I think we're now scanning the logs for something. Well, the camera might also just have a mind of its own. It likes to do that. Let's see. Hopefully the sector birds come back. No. Heading straight for cover. That was a pity. Obviously just too much commotion. I don't blame them. I would not like to get caught up with all those animals. So they must live around here. They can have fairly large territories, which they will defend. I doubt that their nest is anywhere near here. Otherwise, it could just be behind the trees. That's something to look out for. We see a big wooden structure pretty much plopped on top of the tree. The earland wanting to steal the show. Fair enough.
Do you remember the stars of Juma? Tandi, Hosanna, Darkmane, and many more will appear in our tribute. In honor of Animal Remembrance Month, join us as we look back at the characters that stole millions of hearts across the globe. Watch it live. Wild Earth. We are Safari.
antelope are nervous Nellies for the most part, as we know, around water. Elephants are a little bit more tolerant, especially a big bull. So if he starts to act in an agitated or a nervous manner, then we know something is up, and maybe there is a lion, leopard, cheetah, anything really, any predator lurking in the bushes. This view never gets old. Yesterday I was hoping to get a chance to see a terrapin. It might be getting a bit hot. There's a terrapin. Just basking in the sun. I've been wanting to see this for quite some time. Covered in mud. Just relaxing. These are such underrated animals. They're probably the more common reptile that you'll see when you're on safari, unless you're in an area where there's big river systems with water in them. You're probably going to see lots of crocs then. We don't really see snakes. We don't really see tortoises that often. In summer, yes, but terrapins are the ones we consistently see all year round. There's another one just poking its head up on the left. You might see it pop out every now and then. Although that is what we usually see. It's just the eyes and nostrils poking out the top of the water. This is a large individual that we can see at the moment. Maybe we'll see if there's some kind of interaction here. One on the left looks quite hesitant, not quite sure what to do. It is looking for a place to climb out. Nope. Nothing. Well, that would have been so exciting. We see terrapins interacting with one another. I suspect everybody's favorite if you have seen terrapins quite often, oh my goodness, sorry, you can hear the Birchall starling cackling away. Although you would hear a Birchall starling here in Olifants West Game Reserve. Actually, it's not very far away from where I am, just a few kilometers. Maybe if I shout loud enough from here, you'll hear me on the dam cam. On this, sorry, not the dam cam, on this camera. But it's great to see them when they pile on top of the hippos, and they can stack themselves quite high. The cheerleaders of the savannah. Not really. That's not what they're known as, but why not? I think it must be quite hard to hold that position for so long. If any of you have ever done yoga before, I don't know how they do it. I'm just trying to think, is that the natural position of a terrapin head? Not necessarily to be extended towards the sky like that. In the water, it's a little bit easier, though. I'm just blinking every now and then. I'd be fast asleep as well. I wouldn't be wasting energy blinking. The other one on the right is so much smaller than this individual. We'll keep an eye on the terrapins. Maybe we'll see a few more coming to join in and get some interactions. But this week we've had a quick glimpse of the Egyptian goose family. Let's go see how they're doing. Sorry. I'm just telling the puppy that he doesn't need to swim in the water bowl. There's an entire pool for him to go and do that. We got the African sacred ibis down on the left and the adult Egyptian geese on guard while the goslings have a nap in the shade. I saw some of them are in the shade. So elephant dung as well, just to the right of them. Maybe that will give you an indication of how big the goslings are. But they've changed so much every day. They're just growing. And it won't be too long, just a few more weeks before they look exactly like the adults. Slight color differences, but almost the same size. And adult Egyptian geese look like they're on high alert. Something has caught their attention off to the left. They're just growing. It won't be too long, just a few more weeks before they look exactly like the adults. And adult Egyptian geese look like they're on high alert. Something has caught their attention off to the left. And because it's such a secluded spot, it's going to be difficult for them to see any predators coming towards them. Same waterhole where the lions were, and there's some young cubs. They might enjoy chasing the goslings around, and the goslings can't fly. So they would have to move very quickly and try and cover themselves in some vegetation, so just literally darting in the long grass and being still, or jumping back into the water. But this is not a particularly big pan, so lions might still be tempted, of course, to go in and catch one. It gets a bit more difficult for birds of prey to catch them here, again, because of all the cover that they have on from above, from the trees. Yeah, maybe not too worried about aerial predators, but there's obviously a lot on the ground they need to stress about too.
Discover the wonders of the wild with Safari Snaps, Africam's fun community game. While enjoying the live streams, simply tag the animal you spot. Each tag earns you points based on the rarity of the species. The rarer, the more points you score. Your profile and the Safari Snaps leaderboard will keep track of your impressive tagging skills. Join us on Safari Snaps and let's celebrate the wonders of African wildlife together.
some unhappy birds. You hear that rasping sound. Could be starlings, but there's quite a few birds that make a very similar noise to that. So keep an eye out. We watch the geese because if they start cackling, not doing their high-pitched calls, but you can see they're very focused on something. That'll be a good indicator too. But as you know, WildEarth really does depend on all of you to help us keep the show going. So if you are able to donate and just help keep the show alive, please head to the WildEarth website and then you'll see a link that says donations. Every little bit counts. Did you notice when we had that close-up on the ibis, how its throat was moving in and out? Quite often birds will do that. It's called the gular flutter. And it's just a way of cooling themselves down. See, look immediately how those goslings preening themselves and then up. It sounded like something splashed in the water. And the three that are to the left, they might not be quick enough to get away. Or could they be clever by just sitting and staying still while some get up and flee? And if it was a predator, maybe they'd be more enticed by the movement and chase after those. Who knows? Could be both. See, look how that goose is now standing up nice and tall. Can we maybe have a little scan to the left and just see if there is anything there? The wind is, goodness gracious, the wind is picking up horrifically. Okay, I think what we'll do, sorry, I almost knocked my tea over. The ibises and the geese will get blown away. Let's go back to Old Donyo, because the secretary birds are back. There they are. That was definitely the case. It was just too much commotion going on. So they left and then came back when it was a bit quieter. Look at the zebra being so patient. I just love how everyone's keeping an eye on them. Maybe we can just pan a little bit to the right and see if there's something that does happen between the zebra and the secretary birds. We can catch it. Secretary birds can be intimidating, though. If you've ever seen them catching their prey, they open up their wings and they stomp around with their feet. And we've also seen like water thickneys, crowned lapwings, blacksmith lapwings, when they're upset, especially blacksmith lapwings, and when animals are coming too close to their nest, which are normally right at the water's edge, they just spread their wings and make a squawking sound. And I've seen buffalo who turned away and they'll go around. So if a secretary bird would do it, I think animals would definitely listen. Due to their sheer size and the width of their wings, that'd be enough to terrify me. No, zebra's not happy with the birds being there. Oh, there we go. We've got the bossy oryx again. They move quickly too. Exceptional runners. Graceful flyers too, once they can get high enough off the ground. They don't want to flap their wings too much. The same thing with vultures and other birds with rather large wingspans. But I've never seen them flying high and not very high and catching thermals. I don't know what the percentage is, but most of the time on the ground. My elephant is still there. Just see his tusks. I am glad, though, that everybody is getting along today, other than the secretary birds. Maybe the animals are like, we don't see you here very often. Like, people from out of town popping in at a pub or a grocery store. This camera has got the best audio. Just so close. I love those slurping sounds. Oh my goodness, did you see that oryx there? Yes, I dare you. Challenge an eland. Challenge the world's largest antelope. I think you'll be humbled. But there's a lot of footage that's been recorded. I've never seen it myself of oryx defending themselves from predators. And they're ferocious. They put their heads right down and jab them. Yeah, like those two on the right, straight towards the predators. A lot more aggressively, though. They lower their bodies quite a bit. It's a spectacular thing to witness. But when that fight instinct kicks in, it's just astounding what animals will do to save one another or to save themselves. There just has to be a lot of movement that's going on in the dam. I mean, in the hide, and that's why they're such nervous Nellies. This is also a great view We've been spending quite a bit of time with an agama species. And this is nice and warm. You might see him scurrying around on the rocks. Bile Donyo, let's pop over to Towel. And maybe we want some crocodiles. No crocodiles just yet, but our friend the grey heron, warthogs. And just looking to the right, there's a lot of green, lush vegetation there. Are they supplement feeding? Is that maybe where they put down like teff, lucerne, or some kind of eragrostis, some kind of grass species? We were talking about ecosystems a little bit earlier and how difficult it is for these closed ecosystem wilderness areas to get it perfect. So because the animals aren't able to migrate. I mean, I could be mistaken here. It's just a really weird like round patch, which reminds me of, if they put a bale of something out and how it gets pulled apart, it normally makes like a circle like that. And then you don't really see any of those patches anywhere else. So they do have to sometimes supplement feed in the drier times. Also just depends on the biome, but it's very arid where Madikwe is, so it would be necessary. Lots of big kudu in the background too. Couple of zebra. It's a really big bachelor herd of kudu. close-up of a warthog, not a particularly old boar, mature. And now you can see what I was talking about a bit earlier when we were at the Jamala. We're at the Jamala camera. Look how they're using their snouts. So it's not bone that's around the snout, it's just cartilage. So tough. And then they're using it as like a shovel or a spade. So as he sort of flicks his head forward, loosening the roots and pushing the soil away too, and then grabbing it with his lips. And the rock just in the foreground, covered in mud. Good scratching post. Is it green grass there? That's such a weird patch. And obviously we got a closer look. That's such a strange patch to have so much greenery. Kathy, you said piggy. I used to get very excited when I see warthogs, and I still do when I'm on safari, but the warthogs in the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate, my goodness, they're terrifying. They are not scared of anything or anybody. Look at those little birds down to the right of the warthog, just the right of the rock. It's good as you're watching to pick up on certain behavioral signs, so that if you ever go to a national park, it doesn't matter where in the world, where you can self-drive, and if there is a decent predator density, you're not just watching the animal, because you can see when they get nervous, when they have been alerted, what is some excited behavior. It tells so much about the posture of an animal without it even having to vocalize. What is everybody's opinion? I haven't really seen anyone commenting much as to, is this just a random patch of green grass that has sprouted up, or was there something placed here? If it is grass, that's insane. Maybe because of all the elephants that move around there? I have no idea. So some greenery around. I think a warthog. Well, I hope the warthog is going to come down for a drink now and a wallow. Now, there's like little patches of greenery all around. So my thinking, don't know if I'm correct, is when the animals are coming out from having a drink or a wallow, that there's a lot of moisture that's being deposited onto the ground, and maybe in specific spots where they like to come down and have a drink or wallow. And as I've said before, grass doesn't really need much water to grow. Especially around here, it's going to be, I don't think it'll be necessarily the most tasty grass, but perhaps some pioneer species, which can grow in the most harsh conditions. And now the warthog using its snout for something different. You can see how they play a vital role in shaping mud wallows. And warthog's just checking out the water back. Perhaps we can have there we go. Great minds think alike. What about the rest of you? Not going to roll around? Just legs, stomach, and sides were warm. I'd make sure I cover every inch of myself.
On Woodbury Lodge's episode of Destination Safari.
I'm so used to views I forget to mention it sometimes. Underfloor heating in the bathrooms, air conditioning, all those luxury items.
Dinner is a full three-course meal, starter, main and dessert.
Early morning drive, and on that drive you might see some slightly different things, some rare things.
Destination Safari, bringing luxury safari travel to the world.
Oh my goodness. Let's quickly go to Kwamaratane. It seems like the lions are back. Oh my goodness, here they are. He's a young male. Looks quite scrappy, lots of scratches and scars on his face. Even is there a notch out of his ear that I'm seeing on his right ear as we're looking on the left-hand side? Very thirsty individual. Look how big his belly is too. I'm still convinced that there's a kill somewhere around here, so if anybody has some more insight, maybe you're in Pilansberg Game Reserve at the moment, you can let me know. You can hear the Egyptian geese now. Blacksmith lapwings, none of the birds are happy. Perhaps they too picked up on the scent of that lion, maybe even saw movement that we couldn't see. Oh, is that another one? I think it might be that same family group we keep seeing. I like that the goslings don't seem to be too worried at all. There he goes. We'll just keep following him. It looks like there's another one that's drinking. Very thirsty cat. Okay, well that explains why the birds were so panicky from earlier. Also, picking up on those sort of subtle signs can help you in finding wildlife, especially predators. You know, the panicked zebra in the background too. And one of the lionesses before the collar. And that looks like the mother of the 3 cubs that we keep seeing. Very easy to identify her. She looks quite slim though. They are able to digest food fairly quickly. They could also be doing that thing that predators like to do in dry season. It's just linger around the water holes, hoping that some prey will come around. And they go back down the same pathway every single time. It's not often that they're going to do something like that either. Must have been a kill. One of the many mysteries we try to uncover. We've got, there's a lot of limitations. I'm sure if we were there, we might be able to smell the carcass if there was one. Just sitting out of view, but look how camouflaged this individual is. Not that much vegetation in front of the lion, but almost invisible. Oh, so apparently that lioness is called Lady M. And she's been given an identification name. I don't blame them for wanting to rest in the shade. Oh, sorry, my bad. I misread the YouTube chat. Whoops. That lion is not called Lady M. My bad. Wally, you said $10 for making you famous, Lady M. Oh, man, I do some silly things. Can't pay attention. It's the difficult. I wonder if the stuff that's growing on the water is called water primrose. We haven't had a close enough look to it, but it's quite a prominent aquatic plant species. Well, the geese must be satisfied that the lions are at a far enough distance. It, of course, will be entertaining if those cubs come through. They're still very young, but they'll be quite... Stacey, you said that it's made your afternoon seeing the... Oh, sorry. I think we're a bit frozen. We might head to another camera.
Ivy, you'd like to know if buffalo and hippo get along? I'm not sure. Really, I'm not sure. Hippos are known to be temperamental, and so are buffalo. But from what we're seeing right now, they don't seem to have any major issues with each other, even though they're both trying to exploit the same resource right now. I just want to figure out what this little one thinks it's doing. Now, it's not very little, but it's definitely a youngster. Just going to say hello.
Unfortunately, the wild dogs are a bit quicker than elephants.
Sorry, everyone. We are back again. I truly do think that there are some powers out there that are saying everyone should go home now. But I'm going to be doing what these birds are doing. After the show, not even going to lie, I'm getting straight into the swimming pool. I might even have to just dive in with all my clothes on. That's how hot it is at the moment. There are so many coots. This waterhole, I don't think I've ever seen so many. Definitely not in, like, when I say real life. Obviously, this is real life that we're watching, but in person is probably a better way to describe it. You can see them, those big blackbirds, they're everywhere. Some of the flamingos have settled down now, not feeding as often. And most of these birds that we're seeing here, they're not in direct competition with one another in terms of feeding. You see, the lesser and greater flamingos feed on very different things. The lesser flamingos will feed on blue-green algae, so cyanobacteria, and then the greater flamingos sort of like more invertebrates, but both have that filtration system. And then the coots, they like to eat aquatic vegetation, but again, their diet can be quite varied depending on what's available. It's really difficult to see, though, what they're diving down for. Some of them look like they've got strings of plant matter. Also, how is it almost the end of the year already? I can't get over it. I never believed anyone when people used to say by the time you hit 30, time just flies. It's like life is going in fast forward.
Do you want to touch the lives of future protectors of our Earth? Thanks to our wonderful WildEarth explorers, WildEarth Kids is back. Sign your class up for WildEarth schools and enjoy a special virtual field trip to Africa with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Very warm welcome to the kids from WildEarth Primary School.
We'll be dedicating the first hour of Sunset Safaris every Wednesday to our planet's future defenders. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
So Eagle Lover, you've said, hi Taylor, it looks so dry, yet nature provides enough for animals to feed on. It does. Obviously, the environment can be quite harsh. Some areas are, depending on how many rainy seasons they have and the type of biome they're in, they could stay lush all year round. But in South Africa, they do have a tough time. It's also really important, though, because not all the animals are supposed. Imagine if every single animal, every chick, every cub, calf, you name it, survived, or there was no disease amongst wildlife. It'd just be a crazy overpopulation. So only the fittest will survive, and during the dry seasons, that can wipe a lot of animals out. Quite often, it's the predators that benefit in dry season. It's because of that, because animals may be more weak. Can't say that it's easier for them to hunt because the vegetation is thinned out quite a bit, but then also animals form more habits and frequent certain waterholes or rivers. So, like for example, the big cats and other predators won't have to move so much to find food. Like the lions in the Sabi Sand and Greater Kruger, for example, they quite often just follow big herds of buffalo around, especially during the drought. We saw that a long time. So kind of between 2014 and what is it, 2017 into 2018, but mainly 2017. It's always nice to watch the flamingos, but now that they've settled down, let's pop over to Tau, where we'll probably spend the last couple of minutes. Loads of elephants. Oh, now we've got a male and female ostrich. A nice comparison. A bit of an optical illusion because it looks like the ostrich are just as tall as the elephants. That's not really the case. I think those ostriches are hoping that they can maybe get some seeds. Doesn't look like there's much growing there. They, of course, pick up a couple of pebbles to help grind all their food down in their stomachs. It's been quite peaceful at most of the cameras today, which I'm surprised by. Maybe because it is also just so hot, everything is going to come down to drink a little bit later, or they've had their drink much earlier this morning. There's a small group of elephants. It looks like maybe 2 cows and an offspring. You can hear the elephants splashing around. It's nice to actually just sit and observe these ostriches. Normally at this time of the year, and in this area, ostriches are, or have been breeding. So I wonder if they have got a clutch of eggs. So nest communally. Might have a couple of females nesting together. This is where the birds thrive, in this sort of semi-arid environment. We don't see too many in the Sabi sand. There's lots in the Kruger. It's actually really entertaining. Like, you drive through Open Gate, which is one of the gates to the Kruger National Park, and you're sort of between Manuleti and Ngala, which is an ambient property. And all of a sudden you start to see lots of ostriches, but they don't tend to go too far south down the Manuleti, and there's just a handful of ostriches in the Sabi Sand. I wonder if it's because there aren't as many open areas. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the predator density, because look at, for example, the Masai Mara National Reserve. There's lots of ostriches, and they've got a seriously high number of carnivores of all sorts. In the next even couple of weeks or month or so, we'll start to see more ostriches hanging around this area, around the water. Everything has moved off. Could have gone back. You can just see them browsing in the background. Most of the elephants are not here. The warthogs have vanished. We're going to have a quick scan once we've had a look at these ostrich again for some crocodiles. That'll be a nice way to end off our Sunday live at the Waterhole show. And there's also a waterback. Oh, these ostriches are such big birds. You can weigh in excess of 100 kilograms. That'll be the males. They also live to an very old age. What does that sound like? An eastern one, an olive toad. Did you all hear that? Wah, 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 wah. But it has been a very nice day. Obviously, we've had a lot of variety, not too much action. I think most of the action actually happened at Kwamaratani, with the lions and the birds interacting with one another, and then more birds at Old Donyo. Nice to see the secretary birds. I hope we get to see them more often. But thank you very much for joining. Thank you so much for your questions and comments, and I will see you in a little bit. I'll be back at Juma next weekend. So big thank you from me. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Have a great Sunday.
Do you remember the late characters of Juma? Do you miss Darkmane's strength? Do you wonder how many cubs Purple Eye left behind? On the 17th of September, WildEarth takes a trip down memory lane in honor of Animal Remembrance Month. Join Tessa and James for a special Ask Me Anything and learn about the history of our fallen favorites and the future of their legacies. Watch it live on your nearest device. WildEarth, it's in your nature.